Hi, I'm Lynn Johnson and welcome to On the Bricks. Today we're back at the Bank of the Panhandle and we're going to learn more about QuickBooks.
Good morning, guys. Thank y'all for coming today. My name is Sally Hawkins and I'm with Bank of the Panhandle and we're gonna talk QuickBooks. So what is Business and Breakfast? Business and Breakfast is something we created about a year ago, and the purpose of it was to get like-minded people in the room to have conversations about small business tools or techniques so that we can all benefit. So one of the things we know is that small businesses tend to struggle, especially in today's world of e-commerce and globalization, but we also know that when we come together, there's power in that, and we know that small businesses are so critical for our local economy. Come on, Tina, you're fine. So small businesses are so critical for our local economy. So Business and Breakfast is something we do. Right now we're doing it once a month. Next month will be when taxes don't have to be taxing. Will be our title for next month, and we'll talk about the new tax bill and some implications on small businesses. I've got Todd Singletary here today, and Todd is my resident expert on all things QuickBooks. I think he has lots more experience than I do. I do QuickBooks for our personal stuff. I do it for a nonprofit I work with, and then also for the bank we use it in some capacity. But Todd does, I don't know how many people you work with, but lots of people. So why QuickBooks? I don't know about you, but when I started using QuickBooks, I felt like it was a little bit of a misnomer and there was nothing quick about it for me. And so when we think about small business things, QuickBooks is one of those things that I think most small businesses use. And we thought it would be useful to provide some information that would maybe make that process easier for us. Hey. So again, my name is Sally Hawkins, and I would like to go around the room really quickly and just, if you'll tell us your name and why you're here, what kind of QuickBooks you use, and what you hope to get out of this class. Go for it.
Lynn Johnson, Main Street Diamond. I don't use QuickBooks, but I probably should.
Shelby Redcorn, I'm a massage therapist, and I use QuickBooks, the newest version Pro. The fanciest one that I buy every year.
So do you use online or do you use desktop?
I use desktop.
Okay.
Great choice.
Thank you.
My name is Todd Singletary. I'm with Michael W. Baker CPA, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
I'm Tina Sample. We farm. My accountant uses QuickBooks. I think it's 2015 Pro, and I need to know how to use it.
I'm Rhonda Pearvines. I have Merle Norman, and I've used QuickBooks for 20 years, and I use the latest edition of Pro also. I do payroll the whole bit.
I'm Donna Hinchy, and I'm just here to learn about QuickBooks.
I'm Jessica Martinez, and I'm with Panhandle Services for Children, and right now we're using the online version, which seems a little more complicated.
Yes.
I'm Kara Sylvie. I'm with Engine Machine. We use QuickBooks Enterprise. It's online. I've been using it for about 5 years. We do payroll with it, and I'm just here to learn more.
Great. Do y'all want to introduce yourselves? Okay.
Good morning. I'm Lisa Phillips. I'm the Chief Credit Officer here at Bank of the Panhandle, and I do not use QuickBooks. I probably should as well, and we see lots of QuickBook reports from customers, so I'd like to see both sides of this.
I'm Catherine Martin, and I work at Bank of the Panhandle, and I use QuickBooks to balance some accounts, and I would like to know more than following my instructions and clicking here this time to do this thing. So.
All right, so today we are going, this is our agenda for the day. I sort of think about QuickBooks like running a race, and so you'll see some of our agenda items reference racing. So first we'll talk about which QuickBooks should you use, which do you use, are you using online or desktop, those types of things. Next, we're going to talk about starting blocks. So one of the critical pieces of QuickBooks is making sure you get a good setup. That chart of accounts can be really critical to your ease or your pain in this process. Next, we'll talk about some things slow and steady. Slow and steady wins the race. So there are some things that we can do that will make your process less painful. I feel like I've probably made every mistake you could ever make in QuickBooks and had every sort of hair-pulling moment you could have. So we'll talk about some of those things. Next, drafting. As all good racers know, you can draft to gain some efficiencies. And one of the good things about QuickBooks is that there are a lot of tools out there to make your use of QuickBooks a lot easier. So we'll talk about some of those things. And then finally, crossing the finish line. So whenever you decide you want QuickBooks, these are your options. It seems like there are as many options as you can dream up. This is the business options, but then there's the self-employed options, and it goes on and on. But basically the way this works is everything is just adding on. So if you want inventory, you want QuickBooks Plus. If you want payroll, you're going to pay separately for that. So several of y'all use payroll. How many, Carrie, you did? Okay.
We also use inventory.
Okay, yep. And so these three options are online, and like Jessica, you said that y'all use online. What you see is QuickBooks is really pushing people hard into that online version. Todd and I talked about it yesterday, and he and I agreed it's not the same as the desktop version. Have you ever used desktop?
I haven't used the desktop, but with just hearing the comparisons, it's a big difference, I think.
So do y'all like online?
For the most part, as far as using browsers and stuff, it's like I have to have 3 different browsers open to be able to do the different things that I need to do. So
Just for QuickBooks?
Just for QuickBooks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's painful.
Yes.
So there's all of these online versions, and then there's Desktop Pro, which is what most of you said y'all use. So Desktop Pro, do y'all buy it every year, or do y'all buy it every several years? Several. That's how.
I'm on a program where it just renews.
It just
every year,
updates.
but I've waited. I don't know that it really makes that much difference.
I feel like if there's a payroll change, like a couple of years ago when they changed FICA, the withholding amount, I feel like that's when it might matter. But we don't update either. So I just, they want you to buy it. I always get a prompt that says you need to update this, or you may lose critical information, or whatever. I hit ignore. So any questions about options on Facebook, on QuickBooks? Last month we talked about social media, so it's still back here. Does anybody use it for their personal stuff? So I make my husband use it for our personal stuff, and we could probably get by with the simplest since we don't have sales tax and inventory and all of that. So it really depends. The good thing is you can make it fit for what works for you. Then of course there's the self-employment option. So if you're self-employed, it's focusing on helping you maximize those Schedule C deductions. And then there's the self-employed tax bundle, which gives you access to TurboTax. How many of you guys use TurboTax? Nobody. Okay, and then there's Quicken. Does anybody use Quicken?
I always thought they were the same thing.
Yes. So Shelby, I was kind of the same way. I didn't understand the difference. So the difference is Quicken is usually the kind of at-home version. So it's more of a home family operation, whereas QuickBooks then is, of course, the full accounting system. And you can see the differences. You can't manage accounts receivable, you can't do 1099s, inventory tracking, all of those things with Quicken. I never used Quicken. We just set our personal stuff up on QuickBooks and made it work. Now, I made a lot of mistakes when I did that, though. So we'll talk about some of those things. So when I think about QuickBooks, I think about the story of the turtle and the hare, which is, I think you're all familiar with Aesop's fable, but QuickBooks sounds to me like I should be emulating the hare, but that is certainly not my experience. So the setup, do any of y'all have sort of setup experiences? When I set up QuickBooks, I didn't get my chart of accounts quite right, and so I've done a lot of tweaking through the years, and it's been really painful. Kara, did you set up QuickBooks, or was it set up when you?
It was set up, but we add and change things as we go. Like we have a chart of accounts and things that we have to add, or it's like you said, tweak it. So we've had to do that.
When it's hard if you end up with a bunch of history in an account and then you realize it's the wrong account. So we have at the bank, Catherine mentioned we use QuickBooks for several different things. And sometimes they have different people inputting data. And it's really easy to create an account. And so sometimes we'll end up with duplicate accounts. And so we'll have, I'll be posting to one account and somebody else will be posting to a very similar account. And so the totals don't ever look quite right. I don't know, have you ever had that problem? So I've got a couple of videos. There's two purposes for this. One is I think QuickBooks Intuit does a much better job of explaining it than I could. But then second, they have an incredible resource center, and I would highly recommend it to anybody who is struggling with something. You can almost always type in a specific question and it will spit out either a video or a specific answer that has already been asked. So we'll go through a couple of those real quick. Maybe. questions about chart of accounts. Todd, can you explain the process whenever you're setting up, how it goes, the questions it asks, and it'll auto set up?
After the company has been set up?
Yes.
Okay. So you're going to get a choice when you're setting up an account as to what kind of account that is going to be. So it's going to be basically whether it's going to be on the balance sheet or the income statement. That's going to be your first choice. And whether it's a current asset, long-term asset, fixed asset, or if it's a current liability, long-term liabilities. And then once you get on the income statement, whether it's an income or an expense, basically. And it's very important to know what that account's going to be so that it's properly displayed on your financials.
Do y'all have any questions about chart of accounts? QuickBooks, whenever you set up a new company, will kind of try to predict what you need for your chart. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not so good. So it's up to you to tweak that. You can also go to your accountant, and your accountant can help you say, okay, this is what you need. I know Todd said they have kind of a chart of accounts that they use consistently. So that's chart of accounts. I'm happy to show you this video on settings. Do y'all care about settings? It talks about personalizing your invoices, making sure that the data is the way you want it to look. Yes? Silence. I'll take that as a yes.
The Company Settings feature helps you customize QuickBooks to keep your business running smoothly. From the QuickBooks homepage, click the Gear menu and choose Company Settings. Let's start with your contact info. Add a customer address to tell your client where to contact you or send their payments. Many of these details will appear on your sales forms. If you want to know more about a field, click the question mark beside it. Be sure to save your changes before moving on. To customize the way your sales forms look, click the Sales bar. You can set payment dates and methods of delivery and add new fields with custom names. In the Messages section, you can add a human touch to your correspondence. Change an invoice greeting or subject line. Type a personalized thank you note or purchase details. Whatever you write here will be seen by your customers. Click this box to get a copy of each form you send. Online delivery specifies the way your customers see your forms. Check Attach Invoice as PDF to keep its appearance consistent across different computer types. To set due dates for customers to pay their bills, choose one of these drop-down options. Use Payments to specify the way you'll get your money. The advanced settings offer many options for adjustment. Automation, for example, helps you save time by cutting down your data entry. Click the Pre-fill Forms box to have QuickBooks recall information that you've used before and add it to the current form. Check these boxes to automatically apply credits and bill payments to customer invoices. Change what you like, click Save again, and you're ready to go. Now it's your turn. Tinker with it. With fine-tuned settings, QuickBooks puts your business cares on cruise control.
So Kara, I don't know if that answered one of your questions. Did you see that you can apply, in your settings?
Yeah, I just don't know how to.
How to on QuickBooks Desktop?
So I'm on line.
Okay.
And they have a credit.
Yes.
I have to move it to an invoice with the balance. I don't know how to move the money.
So I was playing with it last night, and Todd, you may have input. So you use QuickBooks Online?
Yes.
Okay. So I use QuickBooks Desktop at the bank and but I'm going to transition my stuff to online because it's more convenient, hopefully. We'll see. Yeah, Todd's like, don't do it, Sally. You're going to hate it. But it looked to me like if you had that setting right, then it'll auto apply the payment.
It asks me sometimes, and I'll say no because I'm not quite ready. I wasn't finished with the invoice. so I didn't want it to move it for me. Like I want to move it myself.
Oh.
Where do I go to move it?
So what I've done is, so if you have it turned off, then you can go to sorry, I meant to have this logged in. Now I have to
I'll
remember.
chime in just a little bit, Sally. while you're
Please
getting
do.
in there. You should be able to go into that payment and then reapply.
Like at the top, does it say?
Yeah, I think there's a place, the online I'm not so good on, so I apologize. But you should be able to go back and reapply that payment to other invoices that have come in since.
I've seen it like you have the little check marks by the
Mhm.
invoices.
Right.
So
Right.
what if I need to give the customer a partial refund? I don't want to refund the whole. Can I give a partial
You
refund?
can. There is an option, I believe it's in the upper right-hand corner in the online version, where you can click a box and issue a payment
I
back.
think I've seen that. Like it gives the customer a refund or
Right,
something.
it'll cut a check or put it in your register where you can print that check.
So I don't know if y'all saw, there's sort of a multi-factor authentication. Whenever you log in from a different computer, it wants to send you a code, a verification code to your cell phone or your email to make sure it's really you. So I built some just kind of stuff last night. You can come to customers. Where do I want to go? I want to come over here. I only have one customer. He never pays, guys. Okay, so this has been partially paid. I was just entering in stuff that doesn't make any sense. I was created an invoice and I would pay more, pay less, and playing around with it. And if you have an invoice with an outstanding balance and it hasn't carried that credit forward, you can click on the receive payment, and then it will, down below here, it'll show you payments that have not been applied. And so you can apply all or part of them. Okay. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Oh. Okay, and then the last thing is reports. How many of you guys utilize the reports function? Yes?
I use my QuickBooks more as an accounting program.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a POS system, I have the Merle Norman POS system, and I really get most of my reports off of that because it's easy.
That makes sense. So whenever you pull reports for QuickBooks, do y'all customize those reports or do you use kind of the standard? You can show months, prior year, current year, year to date, that type of thing. Do you use the reports?
Yes.
So do you, like for board meetings, that type of thing?
Yes, the monthly reports or fiscal year usually.
Yep. So I'll show you this. There's a lot of customizable features with respect to reports. Some I hadn't really paid that much attention to before.
QuickBooks has lots of pre-created reports you can customize to show you the information you need the way you want to see it. You can email your custom reports automatically too. Let's start by customizing a profit and loss to show you sales and expenses by month. Start with the regular profit and loss report. Click Customize. Yikes, there's a whole lot of stuff you can do to customize your reports. If you've got some time, spend it playing with the different options to see what they do. You won't hurt anything, and you don't have to save your experiments. For this example, we'll first choose to show profit and loss by month. Go to Rows Columns and choose Months. Then go to Header Footer and change the report title to Profit and Loss by Month. Click Run Report to see your custom profit and loss by month report. To save your changes to this report, click Save Customizations. Choose Add to Group and name the group Management Reports. Click Add in the drop-down, then click OK. Anytime you want, you can go to My Custom Reports and click the name of the report to run an up-to-the-minute version of it. Now let's create another custom report. Sales of your design services by customer, broken down by month. First, search for sales reports and choose Sales by Customer Summary. For this example, let's change the transaction date to last quarter, then go to Customize. Go to Rows Columns and choose Months in Columns. Now choose Lists, then Product Services, then choose Design. Finally, go to Header Footer and title this report Quarterly Design Sales by Month. Click Run Report. In this example, you can see the design sales lagged in January, but picked up by March. Now you can save these customizations and add this report to your Management Reports group. To email your management reports to your business partner every month, first find the group under the My Custom Reports tab. Click the Management Reports row, then click Edit. Click Set the email schedule for this group, then enter your partner's email address in the To field. Now click Edit Schedule and choose Monthly on the first Monday of every month. Click OK, then click Save. All the management reports will get run automatically and sent to your partner on the first Monday of each month. We've got reports that are relevant to specific kinds of business. You can customize these to suit your unique business. If you do projects for customers, customize the profit and loss report with a customer column to see your profits by project. If you run a nonprofit, you can customize the Statement of Activity report to see how much you've spent on fundraising, programs, and administrative expenses. If you're in retail or e-commerce, you can customize the profit and loss report to see how much of each dollar of sales you spend on overhead expenses like rent and utilities. Now it's your turn. Try creating, saving, and sending your own custom reports today.
So does anybody use the sort of auto feature where you can set it up to automatically send reports? I thought that was really a neat deal because we have some things here at the bank that I need to send to our board or whatever, and if I can have it set up to just send them once a month. I did wonder what happens if I don't have them done then, and I assume that would be my tell. But do y'all have any questions on reports? How reports work, functionality wise? All right. Not to beat a dead horse, but the chart of accounts is so important, making sure you get it set up correctly. If you aren't sure or you are struggling, ask for help, ask an accountant, ask somebody. The balance sheet items, for whatever reason, the numbers, knowing account numbers helps me a lot. All assets are usually 100 accounts, liabilities 200, equity 300, and then your income is 400 and expenses 500. So we have ended up where we have a vendor who is Kyle Hawkins and a customer who is Kyle Hawkins. And sometimes that can be confusing when you're entering information. I do a lot of data entry just in Register, which is a little bit different on QuickBooks Online, it looks like. But when that happens, sometimes I'll make a deposit to the vendor instead of to the customer. And so do y'all have any confusion like that?
Yeah, or like sometimes I have to write an employee for a check, but it's not a payroll check.
Yes. So how do you do that?
It pops up this box and it tells me, and I can, if it wants me to, if it's payroll, it tells me to use the other screen. If it's not, I can proceed. So
it's like a refund check or whatever,
yeah.
Reimbursement.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So chart of accounts. This is just the settings still. This is how the QuickBooks settings looks online. It's super easy. I think for me, it looks like the functionality of online is definitely different from desktop, but is trying really hard to push you into more user-friendly options. Okay, so once you get your chart of accounts set up, you have some things we can do that will make your processes easier. We'll talk about those now. Slow and steady, as you can see, is not my strong suit. I kind of want to get it done and move on. So we'll talk about reconciliation, reconciling jumbled items, making sure you're applying deposits to invoices correctly and payments to bills. Using the undeposited funds feature. Does anybody use that?
I think we do. It says that.
You tell it that it's undeposited, and then once you go to deposit it, you check off what you've deposited.
Yeah.
Locking periods. So you can lock a period after it's perfect, so nobody can get in and mess it up, which is useful for me. And then finally, deleting transactions. So QuickBooks makes it look super easy to reconcile bank statements. Am I the only person who has problems sometimes?
It's devastated.
It's heartbreaking to be off pennies, and is the elusive penny. So QuickBooks makes it look as easy as you open your statement, you match them up, and you're good to go. For me, it looks a little bit more like this. So how many of you auto dump your data from your checking account? Or anybody?
I didn't know that was a thing for desktop.
You can download a file and upload it in there into QuickBooks.
Really?
Yes. So if you use Bank of the Panhandle, the bank has a QuickBooks download option, and then you upload it in to the file. So you guys manually enter, you auto enter, or you auto? Okay. So how often does that do it? Do you do it every time?
It's automatic.
Okay. Do you like that?
Yes.
It saves a lot of data
It
entry.
does. Every once in a while there'll be double. It'll get doubled, or there was a period where it wasn't uploading anything, and so there was it was hard reconciling that month, but most of the time it works pretty good.
Good. There's the auto option or manual. Obviously, manual takes a little bit more time, but when you auto import, you have an option to memorize. Do you do that?
Yes.
Okay, so you can tell it to memorize. For example, I auto import my credit card, and I have a tendency to shop on Amazon. So I may have 5 Amazon transactions in a month, and it will memorize it and say, every time I see Amazon, I'm going to put it to childcare because I want to know how much my kids cost me. I feel like I should be able to put a number to that. So diapers, I want to go to childcare, but if I buy dog food, I want it to go to animal expenses. And so if you auto memorize, then every time it sees Amazon, it will automatically dump it to childcare. So you could review it. And so that's the challenge of memorizing, is you want to make sure that is the only functionality you will ever use that item for. So Gap, for example, I only use I don't ever use Gap. What do I use? I don't know. Target, that's a bad one too. TCEC is only ever a utility. So if I have TCEC, I can memorize that, and that's one less thing I have to worry about manually reviewing. So you just have to make sure you know what you're memorizing, that you're telling the system to memorize, and make sure that it fits for always and not just for one time. So we've got, so once you enter your information, then you kind of start your reconciliation. And I wanted to talk about control here. How many of you are the data entry person and the reconciler? Everybody pretty much does both. So I think it's important to have somebody other than the person entering the data looking at the reconciliation. And there's lots of reasons. One, because I make mistakes, and I'm sure we all make mistakes, and so it can be easy if it's your own to catch it. But also because especially if you work at a business and there's more than one person, or you're a bookkeeper for a business, there's always the issue of Are they doing the right thing? I mean, could there be embezzlement? And so we have seen at the bank over the years several issues where a bookkeeper was embezzling and the owner didn't catch it for a long time. And so I think it's important to make sure whenever a reconciliation is done that someone else is looking at it. It doesn't take very long to look at it, make sure it looks good and move on. And then the other thing I wanted to mention here is statements. So whenever you receive statements, I think most everybody receives images with those statements. We had an issue a couple of years ago, and a business customer had a bookkeeper, and the bookkeeper was shredding all the images because the checks were to herself. And so they came in, they had discovered this embezzlement, and they said, well, y'all don't give us images. And we do. We mail images to everybody. Well, the bookkeeper was shredding them, and so they didn't know they didn't have it. And so I think it's important, make sure when you're looking at statements that you are looking at them correctly. We estimate, well, I'll ask this question. How many people do you think open statements on a percentage?
20%.
We think it's 30. So basically the same number. So we think only 30% of people open their statements and review them monthly. And it's so important for lots of reasons, but some of which is the bank is fallible, right? We've made mistakes before and we want you to help us catch it. We're gonna do our very best, but this is your money and we appreciate the opportunity, but we want help in trying to make sure it looks like your money still. So questions, do y'all have any struggles with reconciliation? Am I the only,
Nothing more devastating than typing everything in and it not adding up to what your bank statement is. So the auto dump is really, really nice to know about.
So do you use the reconciliation feature in banking?
No, we literally print them off or we find the ones in the mail. Tend to miss a couple of our statements and then Caleb types them in. And then I check them and say, hey, that's really wrong.
So there's a reconciliation feature. So there's a reconciliation feature where it helps you do that. So it shows you your balance and it shows you all your checks. And you say, okay, I've got that check, and you check mark them off.
Okay.
And then it shows you, okay, you haven't shown these checks have cleared yet. And did you enter your interest? Did you earn any interest? And so it will help you through that process so it's not quite so painful. And then once you do that, you can print out a reconciliation report. Because I have definitely had to go back and re-reconcile 4 months worth of data before. Because I made a mistake in April. I did it last month. I made a mistake in April and we didn't catch it. And I caught it in August. And so is there a better way than that, Todd? Undo it and fix it?
Sometimes you have to just go back and redo it. It's a pain. It's a huge pain.
That's why I believe slow and steady wins the race. Do it right the first time. You don't have to worry about it the next time. I've spent more hours. I've spent Saturdays and Sundays staring at a computer trying to find offages and reconcile statements. How quickly after the end of the month do y'all reconcile statements?
By the next board meeting.
Yes, I get it. Yeah, before the next time. So that is definitely on our personal stuff, not my strong suit. And I've been known to reconcile a year worth of bank statements in February of the following year, which is don't do that. Don't be like me. This is a do not do. But it's way better. You remember what you're doing if you'll do it as soon as you get the statement. You're more likely to catch issues. You won't spend as much time thinking, what is that? I asked Lisa, who is our credit analyst, what mistakes do you see people make? Whenever you receive QuickBooks financials, what mistakes do you see? And one of the things we've already talked about, which is chart of accounts. She said a lot of times they get the accounts set up wrong and it's hard to make sense of what they have because the accounts aren't working for the purpose they intended. And then what was the second thing you told me, Lisa?
Well,
when they're applying loan payments.
Yes, that was it.
That you want part of the loan payment to go to principal and part of it to go to interest, so that your principal continues to reduce correctly. And if you're applying principal balance is not going to match what we're seeing your loan balance really is.
How many of y'all use online banking? I think that's a really important tool. At least I use it a lot to make sure like loan balances are matching and that I'm applying interest and principal correctly. So, okay, back to slow and steady. I like a lot of clutter on my desk. It gives me a place to bury my personal problems. So I think this is probably true for some people. This should not be true of your QuickBooks. So it's really easy to get data cluttered up in there, to get duplicates. Like I said, I found a couple of months ago, we have shareholder, and we had a shareholder entered as a customer. And so it was a debit instead of a credit. Anyway, so everything looks wonky if you end up with duplication. So it's good to go through your stuff periodically, clean up accounts you're not using. You can deactivate, I believe, customers or make them inactive so that they're not on your pop-up screen. Do you guys do that?
I think don't they time out after a while? Is that
I've never seen that.
okay? I had one that was like, oh, we just haven't used this in a long time, and I had to reactivate them. So I assumed they timed out, but that's not.
Yeah, somebody must have marked the box.
Okay. Well, now that I know you can mark the box, I think that'll probably make a lot less choices for me.
Same with employees, anything you can make it active.
And that way you don't accidentally pay an ex-employee. Okay. Applying deposits and payments correctly. So it sounds like you definitely use it for invoicing.
And I do. So I create purchase orders and I receive inventory and we keep inventory. And I don't use it because I don't like it. Like I can receive my inventory and I can go ahead and create the bill for it, but I don't like that because sometimes my packing slip doesn't have freight on it or something.
So it's not correct.
And I can't, so when it enters the bill, I feel like I just have to go delete it and re-enter the bill.
Not all the right information.
Yeah. So I don't really like that, but I do use
So then whenever you get the bill, do you enter it all
we have
then?
like the 10th of the month we pay bills. We have like kind of a schedule, so I'll go enter the bills that are due, according to when they're due, so I'll enter the bills and then pay the bills. But I use purchase orders and inventory, and we keep track of our inventory.
And do you print all your checks out of QuickBooks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, once it keeps, and then when reconciling is easy for me because it.
For sure, if you're printing your checks out of QuickBooks,
yeah,
it's easier. Does anybody else use the invoices feature?
I use invoices, and we have the desktop version, and we just started trying to email our invoices out instead of mailing them. But we can't seem to figure it out quite yet, so we're still mailing it. But we're working on it. It's a progress thing.
That's one of the things that appeals to me about QuickBooks Online is it really pushes everything to be virtual. And I hate stamps, I hate envelopes, so anything I don't have to print is a victory in my book.
Yeah, and you can do like just one at a time too. I kind of like that. Like if somebody misplaces an invoice or something, I could just mail them one invoice, email it.
You can recreate,
Yes,
there's that send function, isn't there? So making sure you apply deposits to invoices correctly. I've got a short video on that real quick, but then making sure you're applying payments to bills. So if you print a check, but when you print that check, you haven't applied it to a bill that you've already entered, then it's still gonna show up on whatever that is, accounts payable, and it'll have taken the money out of your account. It won't have tied the two together. So you have to make sure when you check, if you're building your bills in QuickBooks, that you are telling it to print the check for that bill when you print it. Otherwise, you'll have a duplication. And I'm sure there is a way to connect them. Todd, do you know?
Not if you've already written the check. You would have to delete
Start
that
over.
check and go through bill payment to pay that bill.
So do it right the first time.
Yep.
Okay. We'll watch this and then we'll wrap up.
After you've invoiced customers, they pay you. Great. Now you
That's
need
awesome.
to receive that payment in QuickBooks.
There we go.
To start receiving a payment, go to the Plus menu and choose Receive Payments. Then, choose the customer who paid you. Enter the date you got paid. Then choose how this customer paid you. For this video, we'll go with a check. For the reference number, enter the check number. Let's talk about where you deposit this money. When you receive payments that you're going to take to the bank to deposit in a group, choose the Undeposited Funds account. Undeposited funds is like a blue bank deposit bag you put your checks and cash into at the end of the day. It's just a place to hold the money until you deposit it into one of your accounts. If you have already deposited this payment, choose the account you deposited it to. Next, if QuickBooks is showing you an invoice for a customer that you've paid with this payment, check that invoice. Look at the amount. If it's what your customer paid you, great. If it's not, change it to the actual amount of money you received. If the customer didn't pay you the full amount of the invoice, QuickBooks will keep track of how much they still owe you. Click Save and New to save this payment and open a new form to enter another payment, or choose Save and Close if you're done. Now let's say you've gone to the bank and deposited a group of payments you put into undeposited funds. You need to record your deposit in QuickBooks. If you've grouped the payment with other checks by selecting Deposit to Undeposited Funds, they appear automatically on the deposit page. Check each payment that you deposited. Make sure the payment method is correct and that the reference number has the check number in it for each check payment. The total of this deposit, including all payments, should match the deposit slip or deposit receipt you filled out or got from the bank. Now QuickBooks knows that this deposit, which will show up as one line when it's downloaded from your bank, includes multiple payments. Click Save and Close if you're done recording deposits. Now it's your turn. Try receiving a recent payment from a customer in QuickBooks.
All right. Okay. Todd has an opinion on undeposited. Would you like to share it?
Actually, the more I've thought about it since we had our conversation, I'm pretty good with it. Generally, I don't like the undeposited funds account, but when you have customers and you're receiving multiple payments in a day, there are advantages to it. To me, it's an extra step. If you just code it to the bank account, then you're done. But it makes it easier when you're reconciling your bank account to have that full deposit match up to what you actually deposit in the bank. So,
Carrie, you said y'all use that function.
I use that function.
Does anybody else use it? Nope. Yeah, I didn't even know it existed until a few weeks ago. So, for sure, there are situations where I think it would be nice because it does make the reconciliation a little easier to have it all represented in one deposit. Okay, quickly, our process: data entry, import, reconcile, review, whether it's you or you have somebody else review it. I strongly encourage that piece. It takes time and is not always convenient, but it can save you a ton of work down the road, like when you realize you made a mistake 4 months ago. Finally, there's a lock feature, and you can lock your prior periods. Do any of y'all utilize that? Once you know it's right, your accountant's seen it, it's been blessed, whatever, you can lock a prior year. So you can't accidentally go in there. Not that QuickBooks doesn't send you a million warnings before you make that change, but you can actually lock it down so you don't accidentally delete something.
Where is that feature?
On desktop, I'm not sure.
on desktop, it's under Company and Preferences, and strongly recommend that. That is a
Company and what?
Preferences.
Preferences, okay, sorry.
And you can go in and set a date, say when you're done with your 17 information, you put 12/31/17 in, and then you put a password in, and then you cannot change anything prior to that date. It is a great tool.
Can you, with the password, can you get back in there if you have to?
Absolutely, you can. If you figure out I need to change something, or if you want to lock it down before your accountant sees it, then she says, I need to do something, then with that password you can change them.
Just don't forget the password.
Yeah.
So that's how it would be mine. Has anybody ever lost all their data in QuickBooks?
Yeah.
Me too. It was the worst day ever. I cried. Yep, I now back up very regularly. As with most of the experiences I've had in QuickBooks, they've been great learning it. Okay, anybody ever played this game on deleting transactions? I have a rule. So I enter, for our personal stuff, I enter my checking account information and Kyle enters his. But sometimes we transfer money between the two of us. And I have a rule that when I always enter my stuff first and then he comes in behind and enters his. I have a rule that he is not allowed to delete anything ever. Like, do not delete something, because he'll think, oh, I already entered this, I'm gonna delete it, and then it affects my side, and all of a sudden I'm not in balance in my account, and it's just this like never-ending rat race of deletions. So be careful with deletions.
Both of y'all's checking accounts in one.
Yes.
And, oh my God.
So we have, yes, so it gets worse. We have a joint checking account, we have personal checking accounts, and we have savings, and we build the whole thing.
One program.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
I have my kids' savings accounts are tied into it too. I can see it all that way, but I can mess it all up too. And so I have auto draft to my kids' savings account. So if whatever deposits $50 every month into my kids' savings, which is great, but I have to manually enter it. And if Kyle's reconciling Hoke's savings account and it's out of balance, he'll start messing with my transactions, which messes up my checking account. So be careful of delete. It's a very dangerous tool. And QuickBooks says, are you sure you want to delete this? And it means, are you sure? Okay, so drafting, like I said, there's always efficiencies to be gained. There are a ton of really good resources on QuickBooks and QuickBooks Online. Again, QuickBooks is pushing to online, so that's probably easier to find right now. There's a QuickBooks Connect conference, if San Jose is your thing, on November 5th through 7th. But the Resource Center, not the first video, but every other video came from the Resource Center. They have a ton of really useful, helpful tools. Then there's a blog, the QBO blog. It has tips, tricks, and product updates. There are live trainings. So there's a QuickBooksTraining.com that used to be third party, but it looks to me like QuickBooks has bought it. And I looked, there's a training in Lubbock for the desktop version. And then online, you can get a webinar if you have questions on QuickBooks Online. Social media, if you don't use social media to not think, you want to think about QuickBooks when you're there, there's the QBO show. And so they share helpful hints about QuickBooks and, oh, I had this problem and that type of thing. And then there's also a Twitter chat. Has anybody ever used Twitter chat? If Catherine hasn't, probably nobody has. I haven't either. And so I think it's interesting. It's apparently at a set time once a week, and you can get on there and ask for help and they'll respond to you. And so then, is anyone familiar with Meetup? So Meetup is a website I used when I lived in Amarillo, but in Lubbock maybe, but it's a website where you can have meetups. And I don't even know if anybody in Guyman uses it, but it's like, I want to play tennis. Is there anybody out there? So you set up a meetup and other people from your area can meet up with you and y'all can go play tennis, or in this case, have a great quality QuickBooks conversation. So finally, again, slow and steady wins the race. Get it right. It's so painful when we get it wrong. And then I just thought this was cute. And if y'all are like me, that could be mommy, and that is one of my children for sure. So, do y'all have any questions? Yes.
When you download the bank statements, where does that go to? Does it doesn't automatically put it in your accounts?
When you're on the bank's website, is that the question you're asking?
I guess so.
So if you're on the bank's website, sorry, those are my emails. So if you're on the bank's website and you download the QuickBooks file, you save it to somewhere. You can save it to your desktop. And then when you're in QuickBooks, you upload it. So you go out, you find that file and tell it to upload. One of the things, and I can't remember, I know why. I don't do it for my checking account. I do use it for my credit card because when I download the checking, it only shows the check number. Is that right, maybe? Does anybody else do this? It doesn't show as much detail. And so I can't always tell like what a deposit was for or what a check was for. So it's just easier for me to just manually input it. That's why I do it that way. I'm interested to see if if it's different on QuickBooks Online. So I'll be trying that soon. I can report back. Any other questions?
I have this horrible mess in my QuickBooks.
You're not the only one.
Well, it's a recent. I'll make a long story short. Okay, Merle Norman, all of a sudden, they get my credit card money. I process my credit cards through them. And so I have like it set up as a checking account so I can reconcile it. Well, all of a sudden, my beginning balance is right. My ending balance is right. All of my credit card money is in. And then where I buy merchandise, I have to take that out. And so I pretty much, I general journal that. So it's, on this side. Everything is there, but it's off. And it's every month. And I just got my taxes done and got to my accountant about a week ago. I know he loves me. But he also I've had 2 accountants working trying to get my 2017 where it's supposed to be, and I'm just on February now, and I'm just locked down, and I finally just gave up. I'm off like $7,000.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm so sick of it. And it's almost to me like it's a QuickBook error. Could that be a possibility?
Anything's possible.
I mean, I have, we pretty much just finished 17 and we adjusted it at the end and just said that this is what it is. And both accountants typed a letter, and they both have both letters, and I've got, the letters, and it's like if we get audited, I think they'll just say,
okay,
we can't do anything either.
Yep.
And so we did that, but then I get, January, I was like $40-some off. I can live with that. And so then I get to February and I'm like 7,000. So I mean, it's 6,000 something or 7,000 something. The amount is immaterial because it's wrong no matter what it is.
Right, I understand.
And I don't know what to do. That's what I came for. I thought maybe I was like, ah.
Todd, do you have any suggestions?
Call me. Let me look at it.
I took it to both accountants have just it's been over and over and over, and I thought, I don't know what to do.
So you made an adjustment for year-end 17. So you're in 2018, and you said in January you were off how much?
It was like $40, and
a little bit.
And we literally, everything. Like I have a spreadsheet that how much interest they take out, of each credit card. And I've literally gone through everyone, and, my numbers match their numbers, and the beginning balance and the ending balance, they're correct in the QuickBooks, and everything is right. Everything. We do the interest in a lump sum because that's how Merle Norman does it. So I just make sure it's right. And if it's within a couple dollars, I'm good with it.
Yes.
Because of the mess that they have, and they changed computer systems. That's what started all of this. And so, I mean, the numbers are right. I mean, I make my numbers match their numbers, so I know, and I mean, I thought, I made, you'd think I made an error, but at this point, I don't think I have.
Have you tried QuickBooks support yet?
No.
Have you called QuickBooks support?
Many times.
Do you think they're helpful?
Sometimes.
Depends. That's have you tried QuickBooks Online support? Because they have like a chat feature, I think, where you can chat with them. I don't know. That
Sometimes
sounds like
even if you have the right subscription, they can log into your computer and do it with you.
look at it. That sounds like that may be what you need is QuickBooks to look at it. I know that's not helpful, but if you're sure and your accountants are sure your numbers and your input is right.
I'm a week off of it. I mean, I've done QuickBooks for, day and night for a year, literally a year, trying to find.
It's exhausting.
Nothing balanced. It just doesn't balance, and I just needed a break from it.
That's frustrating.
So it's just your credit cards that aren't in balance. Everything else is balanced.
My checkbook is fine. It's everything else is. It's just that. We've even thought at one point maybe we were entering it backwards. But
Yes.
if we've done this, we've done it for 20 years. It's a crazy.
It almost sounds like you said it occurred whenever Merle Norman changed their system. So it sounds like maybe it's their fault. Let's blame them.
We already have.
Okay.
But it's still our numbers match.
Well, I'd be happy to look at it if you want me to. I know Todd would be the same, but it sounds like you may be to the QuickBooks helpline. Any other questions? Next month we're going to be talking about taxes, when titled "Taxes Don't Have to Be Taxing," and then in November we're going to be talking about Live Local, and that's hold up Santa. Why Santa should shop local. So thank you guys for coming, and please let me know if you have questions, and we hope to see you again.